board.
So a walkthrough of what Jonathan Benson is trying to do. He has a lot of fast mana. He's going to try to find a Ad Nauseam, pair it with either a Angel's Grace or Phyrexian Unlife, and on that turn, he will draw his entire deck and win on the spot.
Now, generally, these decks also need to find a Lotus Bloom or a Pentad Prism against an aggro deck so that they can go off on turn 4 instead of on turn 6.
All right, so we are underway. A Temple of Deceit for Jonathan Benson. Something you normally see play in Standard, but that one scry pretty helpful for a deck like his. For Vipin, it's a Vault Scourge and a Mox Opal on the first turn.
Yeah, so I actually think the temples, the Scrylands, are fairly underrated in Modern anyway. I think in particular, once we see the blue-red temple in the next set, I gotta imagine that some number of twin decks are going to use that.
Yeah, blue-red kind of is the premier cult combo pairing in Modern, I would think. So, Temple of Deceit, yeah, but he's able, because he's playing black mana for Ad Nauseam, able to utilize that Scry 1. You know, this is a deck which just needs to find a couple of pieces. And we'll see now, as you mentioned before, Pentad Prism.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what Jonathan wants to do, is play one of his 2 artifact accelerators. Affinity doesn't really have any way to interact with that. Now he's all set up. As soon as he can assemble Ad Nauseam plus Angel's Grace or Phyrexian Unlife, he can win on turn 4.
Yeah, Pentad Prism is this innocuous little common. It basically lets you store 2 mana for later use, which is great if you're just trying to resolve one big spell.
Now, Benson's build of Ad Nauseam is slightly different than the version played at the Pro Tour in that he has removed the Hive Mind sub-theme. Yeah. Instead focusing on just more tutors, more combo elements.
Well, he's going to be put to the test. Vipin made and equipped Cranial Plating that turn. This turn, it was swung for, you know, a modest amount of, you know, a modest, what is it, +3/+0. So he swung for 4, putting Jonathan down to 14. But when you see a turn 2 Cranial Plating, I have to think that Affinity's going to kill by turn 4 here.
Yeah, and this is one matchup where the life gain is not likely to come up because once the Ad Nauseam deck combos off, generally they can do somewhere in the vicinity of 38, 40 damage.
Yeah. So we'll see Phyrexian Unlife played here. This is a strange little card, actually pretty good against aggro decks. It kind of gains you 10 life. So you don't lose the game for going below 0. And once you go below 0, all the hits you take from there deal infect damage to you.
Absolutely. And it's kind of funny, the Affinity deck's one of the few decks that can actually undo the Phyrexian Unlife by just playing with infect from the get-go. If he just moves the plating over and attacks with the infect creatures, he can shortcut the extra life that Phyrexian Unlife is effectively gaining. Yeah,
and I imagine we're going to actually see him do that here. It seems like the best way to continue, to maintain the turn 4 kill that he has.
Now, the problem here is, of course, that at any point, if Jonathan adds an Ad Nauseam and one more land, actually doesn't even need another land. If Jonathan finds Ad Nauseam, he will win immediately by drawing every card in his deck, pitching a bunch of Simian Spirit Guides to make red mana, casting Lightning Storm, and then just discarding land as long as it takes until the Affinity player is dead.
Yeah, that's half the combo there with the Unlife. So Vipin is going to go ahead and switch from regular damage over to poisoning. This
Smart
is 1,
play.
2, 3, 4, 5. It's a swing for 6 poison counters and 1 damage. So Jonathan down to 13, but more importantly, up to 6.
Yeah, absolutely. This means that on the next turn, Vipin will win if Benson can't either buy himself a turn or go off.
Yeah. See a draw of Simian Spirit Guide there. It does not look like he has the Ad Nauseam in hand. He has a few control cards, I believe. He has a Slaughter Pact. He can Mystical Teachings for the Slaughter Pact.
Slaughter Pact is huge. I mean, if he has Slaughter Pact, then he's all set if he also has Mystical Teachings. If he already has the Slaughter Pact. If he Slaughter Pacts the creature, he can Teachings for the Ad Nauseam, and then on his upkeep, he doesn't even have to... on his upkeep, he can respond by Ad Nauseam and find Angel's Grace so he doesn't die to not paying the Pact.
Yeah, he can never pay for that Pact. We see Peer Through Depths, though. It doesn't have the Ad Nauseam, so he's going to have to find something. And he finds an Ad Nauseam, but can he cast it this turn?
It's very unlikely. I mean, unless if he has a land and a Simian Spirit Guide, he can do it.
And I believe he does. There's the land. 1, 2, 3, 4. Simian Spirit Guide is 5.
He does have it.
All right, so Ad Nauseam. Now, this should just be lethal here.
So he's going to draw every card in his deck, and he does play the full 4 Simian Spirit Guides, so he will be able to use the remaining 3 in order to cast Lightning Storm.
Yeah, so they're scooping to not play through this, so let's walk through, if you haven't seen his deck, just what happens there. Jonathan will draw all the cards in his deck. He'll go to a negative life total, but thanks to Phyrexian Unlife, he doesn't lose. Then he plays this card from Cold Snap called Lightning Storm, which is a sorcery for 1 red, and during the resolution of the spell, you may discard a land to deal 2 damage to any target.
Yeah, either player can discard a card to add 2 damage to the Lightning Storm and choose a new target. But once you have your entire deck in your hand, it's very easy to have 20 lands so that your opponent has no chance of stealing control of the Lightning Storm.
Yeah. So it's 20 lands so that you can deal 10, discard 10, and then
And
if they try
have
to do
lots
something,
of backup.
Yeah, discard 10 more in response.
Now, both of these players are playing for top 8. It looks like the way it's going to shake out, somewhere right around 5 people are going to be able to get in at 12, 1-1 or better.
Right.
Which leaves 3 slots for people who went 13-2.
There could be some players hiding out right now at 12, 1-1. Like there could be there's gonna be a lot of it'll be murky. I would say there's like 5 people in, and after that, then you have to go to the math. And
yeah, if there's anybody who's at X 1-1, they can eat up some of those slots.
Yeah, we did see
which I know at least Jamie Park
on camera last round.
Yep. 2-time top 8 competitor, Pro Tour competitor Jamie Park representing New York. It'll be interesting to see how many X 1-1s there are out there. I mean, it's always so hard to tell with a field this large, not just because it's tough to know which way it's going to break and where the unintentional draws are going to be, but also that people drop at a different rate from a tournament this large. You know, normally people just stick it out to the end. Tournament here, a lot more people are like, oh, well, I can't possibly win anymore. Although this tournament in particular, the prizes actually go down all the way to 150th, which is very unusual for a Grand Prix.
Yeah, that's actually a clause that I don't know what the exact cutoff is, but when the tournament gets to a certain size...
2,401.
Okay, so when that 2,401st person enters, suddenly the prizes go down deeper. And
maybe it's 2,400. Yeah, either way, this is the first one of this new rule. Wizards of the Coast announced last year that because of the possibility of mega Grand Prix, that they were going to add extra prize support whenever the tournament hits this massive threshold, which historically I think only 3 Grand Prix ever have, maybe 4. I know that Grand Prix Charlotte last year, Grand Prix Vegas, and now Grand Prix Richmond. I'm not sure. It's possible 1 European Grand Prix did, but...
Yeah. Also interesting to note the rule that they've instituted, and this involves Pro Tour invites. Any player going 13-2 or better will receive an invite. This is the last weekend to receive an invite to the Pro Tour in Atlanta, Pro Tour Journey into Knicks. So for these players, this is the first of 2 consecutive PTQ finals that they get to play.
Oh yeah, right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even if they take a loss, they get one more chance at the 13-2, where even if they miss top 8, which these guys are in good chance to have a chance to sneak in on tiebreakers, but even if they miss, still invited to Atlanta the last week possible.
Right. So, okay, let's look at the matchup a bit post-board. In my opinion, this seems like it's just a racing matchup, but they may have ways to interact with each other. As you said here, Benson, starting off, 3 copies of Hurkyl's Recall.
Yeah, Hurkyl's Recall is much better. I mean, it's well known as being a super time walk against Affinity. Not only does it stop every single thing they were doing this turn, often it will set them back another turn or 2 as they have to replay their cards.
Yeah, I mean, you can get their lands with it. It's pretty powerful. Coupled with the fact that Benson plays plays a couple Peer Through Depths, plays Sleight of Hand, plays Serum Visions. He can actually find
Mystical Teachings.
Yeah, the deck will play like it has even more than 3 Hurkyl's Recalls.
Yeah, I mean, he even has Snapcaster to run the Hurkyl's Recall back.
So if he can get that, he should be able to buy himself enough time to combo out. And as is often the case, there's not a great answer to Hurkyl's Recall in Vipin's deck.
Yeah, so what he does have access to is Thoughtseize, which is the best he's got to try to fight Hurkyl's Recall or to break up the combo. But then he also has Ancient Grudge, and Ancient Grudge is deceptively strong in this matchup because hitting those mana accelerators like Lotus Bloom or Pentad Prism is more than a double time walk against the Ad Nauseam deck. Not only does it stop them from going off on turn 4, they're not guaranteed to have enough land to have 6 mana by turn 6. Sometimes it'll buy you 3 turns, 4.
Now I want to talk about hitting Lotus Bloom. You can hit it during the upkeep to make them crack it in the upkeep, but I believe Benson's deck can actually combo during his upkeep step.
Yes, definitely, if he already has the entire combo.
Right. Yeah, so then he can't find it.
It doesn't give him the mana for Phyrexian Unlife, and if he has to do any sort of Mystical Teachings shenanigans,
sure.
Beyond that, the only cards that Vipin really has access to that he might consider are Spell Pierce, and I don't know, possibly the Miser's Blood Moon. I mean, it's not super high impact because of that artifact acceleration, but Jonathan's deck has very few basic lands in it.
All right, so we are underway. Vipin on the play starts with a land and a Memnite. I think he's kept what he hopes to be a turn 3 hand. You see a pair of Cranial Platings in that hand. I don't know if he can get, he's missing the Opal to turn 2-1.
Yeah, I think it's more of a turn 4 if all goes well, because without more 0-cost spells, there's just no way he's gonna get 20. There's no way he'll have enough mana by turn 3.
Yeah, he'd have to start with, I think, a Mox Opal this coming turn. So probably a turn 4, but I would say a hand that's like a pretty good bet to turn 4. And so for the turn, it was just a Serum Visions for Benson. Memnite will swing for 1. And a Inkmoth Nexus makes the first Cranial Plating for Vipin.
Now, Vipin really does need to draw some more artifacts so that this plating actually does some damage.
Yeah.
Because as it is now, he's only presenting somewhere in the ballpark of 3, maybe 4 damage. But a couple more artifacts can make this explode relatively quickly, particularly if he gets some colored mana so that he can actually cast that Thought Cast.
Yeah, it's actually, right now, he's looking at like a turn 5 kill or something and that's going to enter in the range of being too slow. And this is not considering the fact that, Benson could be playing a card like Hurkyl's Recall.
Yeah. What Vipin really needs to do is find some colored mana. Hopefully, now it looks like he might have Glimmer Void in his hand, but if he can get some colored mana, then he can Thought Cast, look for a Thoughtseize, and hopefully buy himself some time.
Now, the danger here, what I feel like with Vipin's hand is, first of all, he doesn't actually have that many artifacts in play. He has 2. He can make 4, but that costs him mana. On top of that, his hand is very soft to Hurkyl's Recall. These Cranial Platings, you always have to pay full value for it. He doesn't have a lot of the free cards that Affinity sometimes gets.
Yeah, that's why I think what we're going to see is Vipin slow down a little bit, realizing he can't win on turn 4. He's going to have to just find something like Thoughtseize or possibly Spell Pierce or Blood Moon, but he has to interact a little because he just does not have a fast clock.
Yeah, Temple of Enlightenment, the land this turn for Benson. As I mentioned before, temples are pretty decent in his deck. He's playing a full 5 temples.
Yeah, I mean, these temples have gained popularity in the Ad Nauseam deck just because that's the deck that kind of used them at the last Pro Tour, but they really should be showing up more places. And I think that once we see the blue-red one, that's gonna very, very much take off. I do think that with the zoo dropping to the relatively small numbers that we've been seeing this weekend, that we're going to see more temples just in random places, miscellaneous places where people realize they can afford to slow down a little bit and get some reliability.
All right, so the draw for Vipin, we'll see where it took him. I want to say he has found a Thoughtseize.
That is exactly what the doctor ordered.
Yeah, I mean,
if he leads with Thoughtseize, now he can sculpt his next few turns, and then, if nothing else, drop a Cranial Plating so that at least he's set up to kill in 3 turns.
The difficulty is Thoughtseize is really rough on his mana. Like, if he casts Thoughtseize, he, the rest of his turn is rather underpowered, right? He can't.
He gets to play another Plating. He doesn't get to equip any, but at least he gets to play another Plating.
And you're thinking that just Thoughtseize is that important right now.
And he needs to know what the plan is, because this game's going to go at least 3 more turns. He needs to slow the game down, and he needs to know how to plan out the next few turns. Are you all in on a plating? Are you thought casting as hard as you can? Are you trying to get more creatures down?
Now,
the alternative is, if he has a 1-drop creature, he can play that and equip the plating to the Memnite, but it looks like he does not.
He's going to go ahead and hit for 1. And it's, the black, it's not a Thoughtseize, it's Vault Scourge is the black card in his hand.
Well, in that case,
we'll see what he can do. No disruption yet. And Benson has with a Peer Through Depths, has a Pentad Prism. He has one of his white combo pieces. He's getting very close to assembling what he needs.
So I think I might have just played the Vault Scourge and possibly equipped the Memnite with a Cranial Plating instead of casting the other one. I'm not sure. And that is a fair bit of damage, but you just got to add it up and see how fast of a race are you trying to do here?
Yeah, with that Pentad Prism, both counters on it from Jonathan Benson, I believe he has the Angel's Grace Ad Nauseam in hand. So Vipin's going to need to find some disruption. I don't think he can find 16 damage.
No, it looks like he did have the Thoughtseize.
All right, Thoughtseize. So we'll see. This will be good. If Jonathan has the combo, this will disrupt it.
And this means he will be able to equip both platings this turn.
All right, so we see Temple, another Prism, an Ad Nauseam, the Angel's Grace, Peer Through Depths, and a Slaughter Pact. Now, Slaughter Pact is non-black creature, and Vault Scourge just happens to be a black creature.
Absolutely. So it's interesting. He might actually put both platings on the Vault Scourge in order to dodge the Slaughter Pact.
Yeah, but a timely Thoughtseize by Vipin. This was his last chance to Thoughtseize before he was going to lose the game on the next turn.
Now, even though that Angel's Grace can turn into an extra turn, I think you got to take the Ad Nauseam here, just because there's so many redundant draws for the Angel's Grace.
Yeah, I suppose Jonathan didn't have the combo next turn. He doesn't actually have the untapped land, but Jonathan's very close to putting the pieces together.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, he could draw Angel's Grace, he could draw Phyrexian Unlife. I think you got to take the Ad Nauseam just to make it so that there's less cards that Jonathan can potentially hit.
Sure, that Peer, yeah. The Ad Nauseam, there's only 3 more in the deck.
It is unfortunate that Peer leaves the possibility open to a Hurkyl's Recall.
But I think that's a chance you got to take.
I don't know if you can play around Hurkyl's Recall. If it happens, it'll be a sad time for you.
So Vipin very wisely equips the Vault Scourge with both platings, meaning that Jonathan is now on is this a 2-turn clock?
Yeah, it was
or a 1-turn clock?
So the damage was two from the creatures, and each plating counts up to just 4, so that's 8 more. That was a 10-point swing. It puts Jonathan to 6.
Right.
He's going to have to get it next turn.
He needs a Hurkyl's Recall in order to not die this turn, or unless he uses his Angel's Grace just to buy some time. The problem with that plan, of course, is there's very little future in it, because what are you going to draw next turn?
Angel's Grace, yeah. But Hurkyl's Recall should buy him a lot of time against this hand, to be fair.
Yeah, Hurkyl's Recall will set Vipin back basically 3 turns, possibly 2 if Vipin, I guess 2 turns. It'll set him back 2 turns. Jonathan, considering his options, obviously the main card in his hand that he's considering is Peer Through Depths. Is he going to Peer Through Depths right now, just so he can plan his turn? Is he dropping another Prism? Doesn't really accomplish a ton. What other plays does he have? There's Angel's Grace.
I feel like if you're dropping the Prism, you can do that after the Peer. The Peer will help you decide what to do next with your hand.
Well, the only alternative is to not use the Peer at all, and to just commit to using the Angel's Grace and drop the Prism just so that you have the maximum amount of mana next turn in case you draw Teachings.
Now, if you peering into Teachings is no good. If you use Angel's Grace next turn, you have to find both combo pieces. Which
yeah, I
is
mean,
a tall order.
It's very possible what you end up having to do is find Hurkyl's Recall next turn.
Yeah, so he's going to go ahead and peer. He actually plays his land first there. I think perhaps the debate was about colors, which lands to leave up. And what did he find? Did he find, it's going to have to be Hurkyl's Recall or Angel's Grace.
Well, he has Hurkyl's Recall.
All right, so he's got that option, and that'll buy him a lot of turns. I can't imagine that there's anything else he can really keep here.
Still better to consider the options.
Now, unfortunately for Jonathan, he did that 10-point hit last turn. So even once Hurkyl's recalls Vipin, he's still set to take, it doesn't decrease the clock that much, because 6 life points just isn't that much. Memnite's free, Vault Scourge can get recast. He'll buy himself 2 turns, maybe 3, but it's actually not, had he hit it on the first try, had he hit the Hurkyl's Recall last turn, he would have bought himself a lot more time.
Yeah, absolutely, but as it is now, he's got exactly what he's looking for, which is a little bit of breathing room.
Vipin is going to start out with a Thought Cast, and if he digging for a second disruption spell, I mean, if Vipin can find, say, a Spell Pierce here, he can Springleaf Drum, and if Benson doesn't recall in response to that, then the recall he'll have to burn his Pentad Prism to recall, which is pretty good.
All right, there's the Hurkyl's that we were discussing.
All right, so Jonathan survives there on the attack, returning all of Vipin's cards to his hand. Hate cards against Affinity are hilariously good, but Vipin can reload very quickly. We see Springleaf Drum, Memnite, Vault Scourge taking 2. Can make cranial plating this turn. I want to say that Vipin has him dead on the attack. Yeah, he has him dead again next turn.
Oh, definitely.
So
That means Jonathan has to do something, whether it's find another Hercules or whether it's find the rest of his combo.
I felt like he just had to draw. He'd have to just draw into the other half of this combo that turn. I mean, I think what he's going to do is he's going to Angel's Grace this turn, which, like you said, doesn't really give him a game plan to hit the combo.
I mean, he has a couple ways to try to get ahead. Once he's on the Angel's Grace plan, Phyrexian Unlife has the outside possibility of buying an extra turn. Mystical Teachings can find two halves because it can Teachings for Hercules, buy him some time, and then still have the potential of finding half the combo so that next turn,
yeah.
You know.
And mana isn't really an issue for Jonathan. You see a pair of Pentad Prisms they taps out for. That gives him the possibility of 11 mana next turn.
Yeah, and possibly even more as he has access to Simian Spear Guide in addition to land. Really, though, he's far enough behind. We're mostly going to be looking at a Hercules Recall, Snapcaster Mage, Mystical Teachings, Peer Through Depths, all trying to find Hercules Recalls because he's going to need the extra time.
Exactly. So Vipin, looking at his hand, I think he has possibly the ability, and I don't know what his live draws are. For 3 mana, he's going to go ahead and start with an Etched Champion. Now, if Jonathan has another Recall, he doesn't want to be casting this, right? He needs to. I guess he needs to make this Cranial Plating lethal.
Still seems dubious to play the champion instead of just another Cranial Plating.
Yeah. He's gonna go ahead and swing with the Vault Scourge. Just the Scourge. See if it's lethal. He's leaving back. I'm not sure why the Mem Knight is staying home. But all right, the Slaughter Pact he knew about is on Mem Knight. Doesn't do much.
So he powers up the Nexus, meaning that he now is back up to having 6 artifacts. Otherwise, the Slaughter Pact would drop him to 1.
Excellent. All right, well played. So yeah, he gets up to that. So that forces the Angel's Grace from Benson. Benson does go to 1. And Vipin goes up to an even higher life total. As we said before, life gaining out of combo range is pretty difficult. Benson has to pay for Slaughter Pact.
And now we are squarely on the Hercules Recall plan.
Yeah, if he draws an Ad Nauseam, he can just Ad Nauseam for value. Like, you can not combo with it. You can just hope to draw enough cards. The problem is he's at 1, so that doesn't even do anything. I think he's just making his opponent show him the win. As you see, the Cranial Plating moving over to Etched Champion. All the creatures activating. Another Angel's Grace drawn by Benson.
And this does mean his next turn has more mana than the previous one, making Mystical Teachings a more effective possible top deck.
So if he draws Teachings, there's a chance. All right.
And we pack the cards in.
Yeah, those Lotus Bloom was the draw. That doesn't do anything here, and we are on to game 3. So I find it interesting here that, our combo deck is it really shows the combo deck's the slower deck in this matchup, which makes me think it would favor Affinity in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but the Affinity deck doesn't have a ton of ways to interact with the combo deck, and the combo player has the very powerful Hercules Recall.
Right, certainly post-board it gets more even, may even be in Benson's favor.
Although it is confusing with just Hercules Recalls versus Thought Seizes. Neither player has too big of a list of things that they can actually do to interact.
Yeah, it is still a race. I don't know if Affinity's a full turn faster, so the fact that Benson gets to be on the play here may be the most important thing.
Now, Jonathan does have access to 1 Drown in Sorrow, which...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 1 Drown in Sorrow can sort of function as a very poor man's Hercules Recall, giving him a possible way to deal with some Signal Pests, Mem Knights, Vault Scourges. It doesn't solve every problem, but at least it can do a number on the Affinity player.
Yeah, it really depends what kind of hand that this Affinity player has kept, right? So some of the kills are Mem Knights into Signal Pests, and it's great against that. As we saw there, Vipin kept a double Cranial Plating hand. Drown in Sorrow probably will get you 1 turn, if that, against that kind of draw.
Now, the good news is that it stops Etched Champion, which not a lot of other cards do. Additionally, just keeping the number of artifacts, the total number down, at least it limits the Cranial Plating's deadliness.
Yeah. So we are on to game 3. This is for what we believe to be a spot in top 8. like I said, all you had to do to lock a spot in top 8, I was talking to players about this at the beginning of the tournament, was just go 13-1. I mean, no problem, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, go 13-1, and then as long as you can get a draw.
Right. I told people, I told people at the beginning of the tournament, I said, if you go 13-1, I think you should be able to draw in. You probably can get one.
Yeah, definitely. As long as you're not the one person who's paired down.
Right. If you get paired down, then it's not. Then you have to play for it. So yeah, there could be one 13-1 who's not in. That's ridiculous, man.
Although they're going to have the best tiebreakers, so they're in a real good spot to potentially be one of the 13-2s if it comes to that. All right, both players shuffling up for game 3. It looks like Benson is going to have the advantage, if only because of being able to go first, which is very key in this matchup, much more so than many others. What's he looking for in his opening hand besides Hercules Recall? Just a good mix of combo pieces?
I think a hand that can reliably turn 4.
I mean, his deck is capable of turn 3s, right?
Yeah.
Like if he does the turn 2 Pentad Prism, turn 3 Simian Spirit Guide, Ad Nauseam, Angel's Grace.
Sure. I mean, like with Benson, how about this? Like land, Lotus Bloom, Ad Nauseam, Angel's Grace. You just be like, well, yeah, that'll probably win on turn 4. It's pretty Thoughtseize proof. Like just something that has a comp. Like I think like just something that can make a turn 4. I'm pretty and is like good against Thoughtseize is what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
If I don't hit a turn 4 in the opener, then I probably want to have a Hercules Recall because Vipin's going to hit a turn 4, more than likely.
All right. Looks like both players are nearing the conclusion of their daddy long shuffle phase.
Big game here. This is more than just a top 8 match. This sends someone to the Pro Tour.
Guarantee somebody to the Pro Tour. Loser of the match has to play for the Pro Tour next round.
Yeah, loser match could still go.
Such a variety of decks we've seen. Affinity, Ad Nauseam, Twin, Pod, Tron, Black-Green Obliterator. What we haven't seen is a lot of Zoo.
No, certainly not. All right, we are underway. Jonathan Benson, turn 1 fetch land, most likely setting up a Serum Visions. I believe that it's only 1 mana card that you'd want to cast on turn 1.
Sleight of hand as well.
Oh, yeah, he has the full 8 cantrips.
Yeah, cutting Hive Mind has left room for more of the Eric Lauer experience.
So it's Hallowed Fountain into play untapped. That's going to put him down to 17. Like I said, just needs to set up for that turn 4 kill. That's at least plan A. And it looks like he has a Lotus Bloom in hand as well, so mana isn't going to be the choking point in this for this one. Sleight of hand leads things off. Season. Unlife and another sleight of hand?
I was going to say, a white bordered blue card, that sounds like a sleight of hand.
Yeah. He has a Pentad Prism and a Lotus Bloom, so mana's not the problem. He needs the combo pieces. That looks like, an Unlife and Sleight of Hand.
He does keep the Unlife.
Which makes sense, right? I don't know if he has either of the halves of his combo, but now he has one. Now he just needs to find the Ad Nauseam. Vipin checking the card, probably just wanting to be sure of part of it.
Vipin with no Rift Sweepers in his Affinity deck.
Yeah, no Pull from Eternities, no Rift Sweepers. All right, permanents count on turn 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, making 5 permanents and a Thought Cast on turn 1.
I've seen worse.
It's completely reasonable.
And these are the type of draws Affinity is capable of. I mean, as it is now, he's showing 3 damage and 2 poison. But this hand is very explosive. It can do even more. This is the type of hand that will for sure kill turn 4 if not interacted with, and has outside chances of killing turn 3 if a plating comes to the party.
Yeah, and for that turn, I think Benson may have hit a second Phyrexian Unlife. He's still missing the Ad Nauseam half of the combo. But he made Pentad Prism there, so between that Prism and the Lotus Bloom, next turn we can see him make an Unlife, And hopefully, or according to his plan, turn 4 it'll be the ad nauseum. Second, if it is a second unlife, that's not even that bad here. It helps, it kind of makes his hand Thoughtseize proof. At least the half of the combo he already has.
Vipin, considering all of his options, making sure that if there's any way he can shave a turn off, he finds it. And if there's any way that Jonathan can get himself into a slightly better position, Vipin can try to avoid it.
Yeah, it looks like he has a handful of enablers right now, like a Glimmer Void, a Springleaf Drum. I'm not sure how much actual action is in Vipin's hand. He had a great start. You know, he had the kind of turn one that can lead to some very just good games from Affinity.
Two-headed giant players.
We're gonna go with Arcbound Ravager, followed by Vault Scourge. So more
Arcbound Ravager,
creatures.
one of the greatest beasts in the history of Magic. Not a lot of people realize its creature type is beast.
Oh, it's a beast.
Now, it was not always, but
So in its original printing, it was
didn't even have one.
just was artifact creature.
Yep. However, the new ones make it very clear that it is a beast, which is amusing if you ever run into the corner case, you know, contested cliffs type of situation. Ravenous Bailoff.
Yeah. It is a beast. Who knew? All right, so yep, Arcbound Ravager, one of the linchpins to the Affinity deck. Gives it these combo kills where they can sacrifice all their counters to, say, put it on an Ink Moth Nexus and swing for lethal. It's kind of dangerous in this matchup, I think, would say, because of the existence of Slaughter Pact.
Oh, yeah. And not to mention Hercule's Recall.
Yeah. All right, and Phyrexian Unlife, combo part number 1 in play for Jonathan Benson. He'll pass the turn back. Next turn, the Lotus Bloom comes down. There was no third land for Benson, but he'll have enough mana. He'll have exactly 6, which is enough for, Ad Nauseam and +1.
Yep. Enough for Ad Nauseam, even if Vipin has an Ancient Grudge.
Yeah, Jonathan is at 14. Vipin knows that this turn is pretty important. He needs either some disruption, or can he find a way to kill this turn? I don't think so. Certainly, I think Vipin can win in
Unlife.
Yeah, he can win in 2 swings. I'm pretty sure. His hand is Steel Overseer, Springleaf Drum. Now, if he went for glory here and put everything on an Inkmoth Nexus, is it lethal? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, yeah, it's lethal. If he had the guts to just go straight for it.
I mean, they might have to, because the Signal Pass pumping 1, there's 2 Nexuses. The Ravager is able to convert everything else into a token.
All right. Activating both Ink Moths. Swinging, that's a battle cry here. And now, all right, so it looks like it could be 4. Yeah, he's going to go for it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Creature sacked to Ravager. This should do it. Affinity is capable of turn 3 kills, and I think you're about to see one of them. 5, so that makes Arcbound Ravager a 6/6. It can sacrifice itself to put 6 counters on that Inkmoth Nexus. This is 10 poison.
Slaughter Pact or no?
Phyrexian Unlife, not
Angel's
an answer
Grace.
here.
Angel's Grace could do it.
Well, you'd still take 10 poison, right? Yeah, he has the Angel's Grace and Ad Nauseam in hand.
But you prevent yourself from dying until the end of the turn, and then you die.
Yeah, you get to die on your own turn.
Interesting.
And that'll do it. Vipin Chackonal wins 2-1 over Jonathan Benson. He moves to 13-1, qualifies for Pro Tour Journey into Nyx, probably qualifies for our top 8. Jonathan Benson at 12-2 gets another shot at the Pro Tour. Not out of contention yet either.
No, definitely not. At 12-2, I think he's got real good chances of top 8ing, let alone qualifying for the Pro Tour if he wins.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to jump over to another